Welcome back to the channel. It is coming up to 7 a.m. on a Monday morning. We are heading down to Rosslare Europort to do some work down there today, and it is a 145 kilometer run, so it's small, it's less than 100 miles. But I wanted to see what the efficiency of the Tesla Model 3 was going to be like on the motorway. And a lot of people have been saying to me, Derek, stop going at 100 kilometers an hour rather than 120 if it says 120. So we're going to go at 120 kilometers an hour and see the difference on the way down, and then on the way back up then we're going to go at 100. Now there's gradient, there's headwinds, all that kind of stuff of a difference. I'm not going the same way at a different speed. So before you jump into the comments, this is as scientific as it's going to get here on the channel. The efficiency, so the recent Tesla update, let me turn that around so you can see what I'm looking at. The recent update, you can go to energy and you can see the graphs and what took up the energy. So driving, climate, battery conditioning, elevation, everything else. So we're going to have all this data, which is great. And that's since the last charge over at the Tesla Supercharger in Sandyford. And there was 5 kilometers consumed. And then consumption, what it does is 10, 25 or 50 kilometers. You can see where we're at. So on average, where are we? Instant range, it's saying that I'm about 852, which is not correct. 349 based on my driving style. Typical. So looking forward to see what that's going to be like as we drive along. And then in park, just tells you what you've been consumed since that. So it's the brand new Tesla Model 3 Highland. There's also going to be a video on the channel where I'm going to talk about the lack of stalks. And the buttons on the steering wheel. We're going to do a couple of roundabouts that people have suggested to us. So that's going to be a separate video. And then Kleena, one of my subscribers and followers, has asked to do a 3-point turn with the new swipey, uppy, downy drive modes. So you do this to go forward and to go back. I'll put it on a social channel there actually. So yeah, it's a different driving style, but we're going to go to Rosslare at 120 kilometers when I can. ETA is just after 8:30 this morning. So yeah, Tesla Model 3, driving it. Stay tuned. Just got up the road and realised I didn't give you any of the information that makes it relevant. So yeah, let's try that again. We are at a 422 kilometer. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. Come on now. 422 kilometer, and that is 97% battery. It is a 144 kilometer drive, and it's saying we're going to be at 52% battery left, which is interesting because that means then it's only a 300 kilometer range, which it isn't. It's saying it's a 422 kilometer range. It is 8 degrees outside. It is miserable rain, and we are at what are we at? Model 3 standard range. 438 kilometer maximum capacity. Software is you can see it there. So yeah, didn't give you any of that, but the energy consumption is going to give us a bit more. So down to Rosslare and back up again. Hopefully no charge required. Thanks. Just arrived in Rosslare. Beautiful day. And we're down to 52% of the battery. Come on, now, why don't you focus? There we go. Efficiency, consumed battery percentage, consumption. We are at 13.8 watt hours per kilometer. Projected range of 222. Left. I've got to go back. It's 140. So if you look at the 224 plus 140 gives us 370. That just shows you with regards to how driving at 120 kilometers an hour is really going to make a difference. Let's look at the drive itself. 47.2% consumed, 12% more than the estimated vehicle consumption. So you can see driving took a huge amount of it. Small bit on climate, but there was nothing else really insignificant, so it was all predominantly driving. Increased climate control activity, air drag, tire drag, 3.2%. Staying below 110 kilometers, the guidance here, would have saved you 2% since your last charge. Going uphill cost me 8%, and going downhill saved me 9%, so roughly balanced itself out. I am going back to the Supercharger in Dublin because I've got some driving to do later, and so what will happen is it is 146 back. It's saying I'm going to have 3% left. So 146 and 140 odd is sub 300 range on this standard range Tesla Model 3, whereas the guessometer is telling me at the very start of it all it's 400 kilometer range. So you may think you've got the big range, but you have to remember that depending on the driving style, depending on the speed, and whether it's urban versus motorway, it's going to make a huge difference. And these are things that you will learn as an EV driver and to be educated on before you make the purchase of an electric vehicle. And that's what these videos are about, making sure that you are more educated and understand an electric vehicle and its capacity and capability, and limitations. There are limitations with all vehicles, but just electric vehicle just gives you more data. Okay, hopefully I don't get too wet working in here today, and I'll let you know when we head back up to the Supercharger in Tesla in Sandyford. Thanks. We've just arrived at the Tesla Supercharger and we're at 9 kilometers left. Efficiency is 17.6. The drive itself, 209 kilometers consumed since last. So in total driving climate, you can see the difference where we lost the battery condition, took an extra 10 kilometers to get this up and running. But I'll be plugging the charger and come back to you in a second. I don't want to be keeping other people waiting. Just after meeting somebody at the Tesla Supercharger here, and he asked me if I was doing coast to coast with it. So today it was Dunleary to Rosslare, 142 kilometers, and then back up to the Supercharger in Dublin, 144 I think it was. So that's 286, and then 10 kilometers, so sub 300 kilometers on motorway, and it was pretty much N11, M11 all the way, 120 kilometers all the way down, and let me turn off my wipers, and roughly 100 on the way up. I had to keep it below because the system room told me that if I kept it under 105, I'd make it to my destination, which proved to be correct. Miserable day, 10 degrees, rain, all the rest of it. I'm actually surprised at the range. I thought we'd get more than 300 kilometers out of it. Now I know the preset, this is the standard range Tesla Model 3. Efficiency is not bad for motorway driving and for miserable weather. But let's go back into the efficiencies again just to have a look and see. We arrived with 11 kilometers left, and consumption, as we said, was 176 watt hours per kilometers projected. That's the instant range versus the average range. And then in park, there was nothing consumed since last charge. 9 kilometers consumed because I did pull over for a call, but I had it on my laptop, so there wasn't really much stuff used. So yeah, around that 300 kilometers is what we got. Driving climate, etc. A breakdown of it. 415 consumed since the last charge. So yeah, lots of information there. Good to see it, good to understand it, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. It's great to have the Tesla Model 3 on the channel, the Highland version, the new one. I had a look at it just at Christmas time as well, so if you want more of a look around of the actual car itself, there's going to be another video on the roundabout issue and 3-point turn. There isn't really an issue. I'm driving it the guts of 2 weeks now, and you just get used to it. It's more conscious indicating, as I like to call it. The traditional holding a steering wheel at 10 to 2 and feeding it through is slightly different because you have to kind of follow the wheel around, but you'll see that over on the roundabout video. But hopefully you've enjoyed that trip in the Tesla Model 3 Highland. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hit the like button, leave a comment and let me know what you think. And if you think any EV is for you, leave it to me and I'll review. And if you enjoyed this video, I know you're going to enjoy that video too.